My name is Bennett Santana, and welcome to the GoldMind Business Academy. We combine professional development and entrepreneurship coaching to help purpose-driven leaders grow stronger, build smarter, and lead with lasting impact. I've been in business for over 34 years, and I've invested millions in building companies, mastering systems, and learning from the best. And I've also lost everything twice, facing recession, lawsuits, even foreclosure. You could even say this is occurring a third time over this summer. At one point, I made 2,800 cold calls in a single summer. I pushed myself so hard I lost my voice, but I never lost my vision. Now I teach what I lived. At GoldMind, we're rooted in experience and anchored by faith. Our mission is to help you build yourself, your business to last, and leave a legacy that truly matters. This episode speaks to you. Subscribe and leave a review. I'm Bennett Santana, and as always, never give up and always build up. Let me start with a question. Have you ever had a season so stressful your goals felt like they were just slipping away? No matter how hard you push, the motivation wasn't there. That was me this past summer. And instead of breaking me, the stress forced me back to the basics. And I discovered something powerful. 7 conversations that could save your business when stress is trying to break it. At the start of the summer, the federal government made a decision that nearly closed my biggest client. Overnight, we lost 50% of our sales. Immediate impact on the P&L, and debt started climbing. And I had to do what every leader dreads, make personnel cuts. Now, I've always said you should be slow to hire and fast to fire. But if I'm honest, most of us in business end up doing it the other way around. Fast to hire and slow to fire. We hire too quickly. Then when revenue drops, we're forced to let go good people. And that's just not numbers, that's families, that's lives, and it weighed heavily on me. On top of that, my body started betraying me. I was diagnosed with a dysphonia and a condition that caused voice fatigue. And someone who teaches, coaches, and creates content, that's devastating. I even stopped producing content for a while. The truth, it was one of the hardest seasons of my life. And I know I'm not alone. Stress is everywhere. Gallup reports 49% of Americans feel frequent stress, the highest they've ever reported. The APA, the American Psychological Association, says 1 in 4 adults rates their stress level at an 8 out of 10 or higher. OSHA reports 83% of workers say work-related stress affects them daily, and with more than half saying it follows them home. And you could imagine what that leads to. So stress isn't just uncomfortable, it's dangerous. And if we don't manage it, it'll manage us. So how did I survive this season? It wasn't by hustling harder. It was just by letting go and really having time to think. My wife took a trip to China. For a long time, I had the quiet and peace. I remember her calling me and said, "How you doing?" I go, "I cried for about 2 hours, but I feel a lot better." That was the kind of season I had. And in that silence, I picked up my PC and I started writing a 13-week journal. It's a complement a book that I'm writing called When Your Business Strips Blood. And so it was born out of stress, and it gave me clarity. I realized something profound. When stress is high, focus gets blurry, and you can't see the forest from the trees. The key is to break things down. Psychology tells us our short-term memory holds about 7 chunks of data. That's why your phone numbers are 7 digits. So I asked myself, what if I could break down our conversations into 7 areas? Would that restore clarity in the middle of chaos? And the answer is yes. And so I came up with the 7 GoldMind Conversations inspired by Fernando Flores' action language theory. So these are the rhythms that reset a business and they could reset your life. So I'm going to cover those 7 conversations. The first conversation is conversation for rapport. And that's a conversation where you're speaking to someone you never spoke with. And this is a conversation where you actually make connection and you build trust. The second conversation is a conversation for possibility. This is to open the imagination to what we could be. And this is related to brainstorming and its various processes that you could lay out. The next conversation is a conversation of strategy and direction. It's called the conversation for opportunity. This is where you take those ideas in the conversation for possibility and you start to lay them out from long-term strategy and a short-term tactical method. And it's just a way just to organize what are we going to be doing the next couple of years? What are we going to do now? Once you lay that out, the next conversation, and one of the most powerful conversations, if you could learn, and I'll be teaching some of the techniques related to this, is called conversation for action. This is where you make clear requests, conditions of satisfaction with a due date. This is something a lot of people don't know how to operate on, and there's many distinctions that relate to that. And if you could dominate this conversation for action, you could immediately have impact in whatever you're doing in your life. The next conversation is to face what isn't working without fear. And that's called the conversation for breakdown. This is where you deal with breakdowns. You have a logical process that you follow to basically repair it and evaluate it. The conversation after that relates to people, and it's called the conversation for acknowledgement. This is where you celebrate other people's efforts and wins. This is something for me is very difficult to do because I don't need a lot of acknowledgement, but it's something that other people need, and it's a good thing to have, and the ability to know how to recognize other folks. And the ultimate conversation with people is called the conversation for wholeness. This is where you help them restore alignment with who they are, help them move into areas of peace, and above all, conversations of faith and future thinking. And that's one of the greatest conversations that you ever have with a person. And this week, I've had that conversation with 2 families, and they were restored. And that's a very deep, great conversation. So every week, I cycle through these conversations, and every week, I regain clarity. So that's why the GoldMind Journal is built on a 7-day cycle. Remember when I talked to you about 7 days? So we have the 7 days of the week, right? Monday through Sunday. On Monday is the day that you evaluate what's going on in your business, and you have 2 distinct conversations. One is called the conversation for possibility, where you brainstorm as to what are the things that you could do for that week. And also a conversation of opportunity, where you lay out your strategy for the week, and you set vision, you set direction with yourself and your team. Now, Tuesday to Thursday, those are the most impactful days. That is a conversation for action. This is where you take a 3-step process. You make a request, you report, and you get results. Who do I make a request to? Let's say I'm just by myself. Well, you make a request to yourself. You make a very clear request to yourself with conditions of satisfaction and a due date. There's a time to report, and then there's a time to get it done and to get the results. On Friday, it's a conversation, a report. This is where you actually pick up the phone, call someone you don't know. Call one of your competitors, introduce yourself to them, have a conversation with someone that you don't know. Second, with the people that you're in your team, you have a conversation for acknowledgement. You acknowledge the wins. I usually do this around 3:30 every Friday. We acknowledge the wins. On Friday, you also talk about conversations for breakdown. What didn't work during the week? And what are the actions that relate to it? And ultimately, when you do get a chance to sit down with someone, you have a conversation with wholeness. Hey, how are you doing? It's a little slower on Friday. Tell me, hey, what are you doing for this weekend? How are you setting that up for yourself? And what good is happening in your life? And then Saturday is personal reset and rebuilding. This is where you knock out that to-do list. You buy groceries. You got to get the oil change in your car. This is where you lay that out. You get that done on that Saturday, and you rebuild. Rebuild your personal home life in that day. And then Sunday, this is the most amazing day to lay the week up, is your spiritual alignment and gratitude. And that's something that I've laid out in this 7-day journal. 1 week, 7 conversations. It's a rhythm that stabilizes you, focuses you, and fuels you. That's why I'm giving away a full 7-day sample of the journal for free, because sometimes just 7 days of clarity is enough to change your entire direction. So here's my encouragement. If stress has blurred your focus, just don't push harder. Slow down. Change the conversation. Practice these 7 conversations in a rhythm and let them restore your clarity. Stress doesn't have to break you down. It could build you if you let it. This has been the GoldMind Business Academy Podcast. If this spoke to you, share it with someone. If you want the 7-day journal, check the link in the show notes and start your reset today. I'm Bennett Santana, reminding you never give up and always build up. Until the next time, thank you.